Good morning, Coach. How's your
Hey,
weekend?
Max.
Doing great, guys. How y'all this morning?
Good. Max, go ahead, Dad. Go ahead.
We're supposed to start with you with Alabama and what the great philosophy or not philosophy, but the great job that Coach Saban did behind the scenes to get everybody playing on the same page. So I'm not going to.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you about a 27-9 third quarter lead by the Hogs. And in the shocker of maybe the year, they get beat 34-27.
That's very
How
true.
bad's that going to hurt that program?
Well, I think it shook them to the core. I talked to a couple of people over there yesterday, Coach, and I think some of them are still scratching their head as to how that happened. And I think what it goes is first of all, you got to go back and look at where Arkansas where they came from. I know they got a lot of new players and new staff trying to install a new philosophy over there. But getting those kids up to play against a pretty decent team every week, if they can get 6 wins, I think that program will be a turnaround. They got 4 last year on the Bielema last year. That was one of the things that cost him his job. But I think maybe sometimes if you don't prepare hard enough and you take away the emotion out of the game, particularly when they play in a team that they view as at a lower level, I think that you see the results.
You get A&M's defensive coordinator. You didn't get much.
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. I agree. But they ain't recruited enough. They ain't got enough players. They can consistently play at that level. So I think the attitude over there came out of the block with use something new, something fresh. I think what it did, it brought them back to reality. So they know they got to go back to work and really get ready because they got a situation with their schedule this year that's going to be challenging. Let's say that.
Yeah, Barry.
Max, all three of us is coached at the highest level, and we know the different egos you deal with some of these players, the people around them.
Yep.
Just tell the listeners how lucky Alabama is to have 2 guys like Jalen and Tua, the type of kids that they are. I mean, you take that for granted, I think, to have 2 kids that have accepted their role. Everybody, I was wrong. I thought Jalen would redshirt, but how selfless is that? He went in there probably and said, Coach, hey, I'm here. You do what you got to do. These are 2 special players, but really 2 special kids. How rare is that now in this day and age in college football?
There's almost unheard of. But I think I go back to the way Coach Saban has built that.
Mm-hmm.
And you've heard me talk about Kevin Elko from day one. But I've read every one of his books, and I still reread them. Guys, it's the selection process that staff goes through in recruiting. Just because you're a 6'3" and 220-pound kid running 4.5, that don't mean you come into Alabama to play. If you don't fit the other psychological edges there, you take discipline, you take criticism, you find your role, you got to be a team player, all those things that Coach Saban has put together in his process, that way you step back and say, really not surprised. But to answer your question, it is highly unusual. But I think it goes back to that selection process that they use there. And beyond that, Jalen Hurts might have been a little bit different. But guys, you know this. You see a kid, if and when you make a mistake, and you'll make a few along the way because they don't hold that attitude for whatever reason. They get influenced with other outside sources, I'll say. But when a kid doesn't fit his program, they just disappear. Coach Saban will help find them somewhere else to go, whether it be a junior college or, out west somewhere out of this league. And they may end up playing okay. But I say all that to you to say, Barry, highly unusual with quoting what I call the millennium, attitudes that young kids come out of high school with now.
Yeah,
I think the offensive
to me.
coordinator, not the coordinator, but I think the offensive quarterback coach from Arkansas and Nick Saban behind the scenes. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but you always have to work things out. As you know, Max did a darn good job.
Yep. Yeah, there's no doubt about that because, and a lot of those kids sometimes have good intentions, but they handle wrong. They aren't told the right thing or, for whatever reason. And I've always been one, guys, that I think Jimmy Johnson said it best when he was in Dallas. Every coaching staff has to have a set of rules. But every rule doesn't apply equally to every player because the personality, because, where you are in the pecking order, and a lot of things that go into that. But I think in a situation like this, those kids are handled a little bit differently because they have the makeup before they got there to be able to handle it.
Max, Georgia looks good. They're deep, and I think Kirby showed the ability now. He's recruited really well, and so they kind of can start to use the word reload over there. South Carolina just ran out of gas. Georgia's got more players, but Jake Fromm's a solid quarterback. Doesn't do a lot of flashy things. He just wins. Talk about what you saw in Georgia there against South Carolina.
Well, I see potentially that Justin Fields' kids are going to be able to play, along the way, and he's going to come back. And I'm not saying that Georgia will have the same situation in another year that Alabama has had this year, but I think there's a potential for that. And I think once again, Kirby's done a remarkable job in getting that many great players to come to Georgia at one time. But now it's coaching them and handling those egos. What about the depth chart? How do you handle practice every day to see who moves up, and then what kind of playing time a lot of those guys get? You're going to see some transfers along the way because there's some high-profile players that's not going to get enough playing time for whatever reason. So I think they've done a great job. They're going to win the East again. I don't think there's anybody in that side of the ball side of the league that can compete with them. But I'm really interested in now. We've seen the immediate success that he's had. What's the long-range picture? Guys, you know this. It's a heck of a lot easier to going up the ladder than it is to stay there at the top. And I think that's where Kirby Smart and his staff's going to find themselves, which I think is going to, really make for great competitive football week in and week out. But if you're a big-time fan of Georgia Bulldogs, let's pay attention to, where they are now, staying at the top, and how long can they stay.
Yeah.
Outside of LSU at Auburn and Alabama at Ole Miss, there's not many games unless you want to talk about Missouri at Purdue, which you probably don't. Yeah. Alabama's going to intercept a lot of passes against Ole Miss. Is secondary is porous, and I think they've thrown it so well in the first two games. They won't throw it that well against Alabama. I think it'll be a. Right. I don't think it'll be a barn burner, and I don't think the quarterback at LSU can beat Auburn.
No, I tend to agree with that. I think that without a doubt. First of all, playing Jordan Harris, you guys know that's a tough go. And LSU had been challenged to that respect. And again, the quarterback at LSU right now is a team, a team manager. He's not, they don't ask him to win, just don't want him to lose it. And I don't think they've got the overall talent. Now, Auburn's got to play well. The defensive side of the ball, particularly, got to stop the slashing and the running. He's not going to throw it down the field very often. But you go back to you mentioned the Ole Miss thing, but I looked at that game very carefully when they played Texas Tech. And one reason they picked them apart was because of the coverage in the secondary. Alabama's going to play man coverage on them, play all kind of combinations, and they're going to show some pictures that they hadn't seen before. Because Coach Saban's going to bring that stuff. He'll reach deep into his playbook to give you some confusing looks on the defensive side. They got two great wide receivers, but Alabama ain't going to play 8 yards off from them and let them catch a slant pattern either. They're going to be right up in their face, and they'll shut that off. And the defensive front will, make the quarterback have to get out of the pocket occasionally. And then the other side, I don't know if Alabama will throw it very much. I think they're going to turn the hand it off and eat the clock up on the offensive side, so it keeps their offense on the sideline. I mean, that's just unless it gets out of hand pretty quick. So I think it's going to be two pretty good ball games going in. I got both Alabama and Auburn winning this weekend too. And I think from a fan's perspective, I'm just on the show just 30 minutes ago, and they were talking about, of course, Alabama over here. Everybody wants to point back to the couple of times that Ole Miss beat Alabama in the last few years. And you know what my response was? With the kids they brought in, we didn't get into how they brought them in, but I said the kids they brought in, me and you could coach, it beat somebody because they did have a really high degree of talent at that particular time. And they've got good talent now, but just don't have enough.
Max, Texas A&M played well. I thought they got a bad call there at the end. And I thought it looked like the ball went out the side to me. I don't know what they were looking at, but
I don't either. I don't know why it wasn't reviewed.
It was reviewed. It was reviewed, and they said it went through the end zone.
Well, the thing that bothered me was the people in the office at the SEC office where the judges and the people on the field were ACC.
Yeah. Oh, I knew the ones on the field, basically weren't But I couldn't understand the rule. I thought, again, my interpretation rule is the ball had to go out of the end zone at the end. But they ruled it if it crosses the pylon, it goes out anywhere. I'd never seen that interpretation done before.
And I don't think that happened either. I thought it went behind the pylon by my.
They said it went inside the pylon and then swung left. That was one report I read about it.
But
I was totally confused by what I interpreted the rule to be and what the way they interpreted it.
Well, I was glad they at least got the ball back and scored and had a chance to go for two. But that game, A&M played well. Jimbo's going to get a lot of credit, but I think that game takes a lot out of Texas A&M.
Well, the big question there, can they get up and play again? They got they got LSU still. They got Alabama coming in 2 weeks. I mean, they got to work for that one. He did a heck of a job getting them to play at that level. Guys, if you watch the coverage with the wide receivers, those defensive backs at Clemson was right in their back pocket the whole game. Most wide receivers would have not caught half those balls that they did. So I give it to A&M. They were well prepared and they performed well. But as you said, can they do it again? Can they come right back up and get ready to play again? I think they're not accustomed to that. Those players aren't accustomed to playing at that high level. And the emotional aspect, I think, may take its toll in the next week or two.
Yeah.
Kentucky comes back and wins, and Florida is still Florida to me over last year a little bit. Kentucky fought their guts out to win the game. I hate the Florida fans so bad. I hope they lose every game they play. But comment on that game,
Coach. I'm still saying, I've said to you earlier on, to me they don't have the right quarterback yet. They got a kid, number 3, the third string quarterback, and this kid named Emory Jones. And he's the kid that Dan Mullen recruited and brought in, and he's going to be the quarterback. I mean, this may be the time that he makes the change because Franks can do enough to get the ball down the field. Jones is a runner. He's an option, speed option quarterback, big kid that can throw it and run. And I think that will be the salvation for him. Now, they got to get them all playing on the same page. But, when you get behind, Kentucky's momentum started, and Florida, basically, they won 31 straight against them. So getting them up to play at that level, even regardless Kentucky's a little bit better, Dan didn't do that. And I don't, obviously I'm not on staff, I'm not internal with those guys, but the observation is that they didn't play well enough to win. That was first. And second is they do have more talent, but he didn't get it out of them for whatever reason. I think it starts with the quarterback. And I think, I don't know when Jones will play this week or not. Surely they're not going to try to redshirt him after that performance this past week. So the next week or two, we're going to find out. If Dan's ready to throw him in the mix, and they'll get him. I'd rather lose with that guy for the future than I had to let him sit on the bench.
One other thing I want. Go ahead, sorry.
I just say you can't get better at that level by not playing against good competition. And they don't have enough players right now.
One other thing before Barry asks you, I think that the way Florida State's playing is going to really affect their recruiting.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I agree with you 100%. They were forced to beat Sanford. And again, how many mistakes from I can't tell you enough. It's one thing when you got a coaching change and your kids are making mistakes because it's a new system. But when the coaches make mistakes on the sideline, substitution mistakes, wrong personnel in the wrong time, wrong timeouts, play calling for the wrong play that's all coaching stuff. And that staff has fallen into that category the first 2 weeks.
Max, I told you about, I thought that trip to Manhattan, Kansas was going to be difficult. Well, Mississippi State, just check that right off the list. Joe Moorhead, a lot of times you go in there and you have a bunch of talent. It's not as easy as people think to do what he's doing, to go in there and win. But I thought Mississippi State looked tough. They played well. That was a huge win. By the margin surprised me. Just talk about Mississippi State a minute.
Yeah, and my main concern, Barry, was Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald got hurt in the last ball game of the year. He'd not put the pads on. He'd not done one thing except work on his upper body since last year. He didn't go through spring. Didn't play in the first ball game. So that was his first time he'd been hit in 6, 7, 8 months. So I was surprised at how efficient that they did perform. But they didn't only just perform well on offense; they played good defense. And that was where I thought Kansas State would line up and run straight at them and really trying to beat them down, toward the end of the game. But Mississippi State, they got to remember, guys, they returned 18 starters off that team that won 9 last year. So they got some talent. Don't have a lot of depth, but they got some talent. But I agree. I think that what surprised me was the margin and the way they handled Kansas State at that particular time.
Max, before the season, we all looked at Alabama's schedule and just said, "Ugh, that thing's so easy. They don't have any problem there." But A&M looked a little better. Ole Miss, they'll get your attention. I don't know if they're any better, but score 70-something points, they'll get your attention. LSU right now seems to be a little bit better. Mississippi State, Auburn. Is the schedule maybe a little better than we thought it was before the season?
Yeah, I think it is. I think what we're seeing now is a performance with some of those teams that we didn't think could play. And if you really analyze that, remember, it's not like it used to be. They got 20 hours a week to prepare. There's been a pretty good turnover in talent level at most schools around the league. But the quarterback play, I think, is better in the conference this time. And I certainly think the performance from top to bottom is a lot better than we did. Hey, and I know, and I go jump over to Tennessee. As bad as they were the first game, they scored 59 points this past. I know the level of competition wasn't there, but I guarantee you, Jeremy Pruitt sees some. He's gotten excited when that program as bad as they were the first ball game. When they come out the next week, score 59.
Barry, both of you always need a game that you can win by a big score.
But you just said earlier, though, the Arkansas State game was a bad game.
I'm not. You didn't let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless you're a top-notch team, which you don't need one. But if you're a team like Tennessee's and Vanderbilt's and people like that, any game you can win by a big score makes you feel better about yourself. Don't tell me it doesn't. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree 100%. The only thing difference is the one that didn't win by a big score, but it was huge for their program is Kentucky over Florida. And
Kansas.
Step back and don't think about the way they're playing right now when you coach it all. Just think Kentucky lost 31 straight years, and they go to Gainesville and win that ball game. That Stoops and them out right now ought to be riding high. The hardest thing they'll have to do is bring that team back down to get ready to play. But the concept is, Coach, you're absolutely right. To win a game by a large margin when your program is building, you can't put a price tag on that.
I agree with both of y'all, but I also think it can give you a false sense. When I look at Florida, they just drilled Charleston Southern. Kentucky's rolling in there. They beat them 31 straight. I think they had a false sense that they thought they were better than what they were, and they didn't get ready to play against Kentucky.
Well, I think the psychological thing, Barry, is absolutely imperative that you have to coach for today. Is that thing of getting them up to a certain level and trying to keep them there. Yeah, I don't think anybody argues with that, but to me, that edge, I know it goes back to the players, because the players play and the coach is supposed to coach, but that week of practice prior, you can pretty well sense the intensity that the coaching staff puts on practice day by day as to how your team's going to perform. I don't ever remember being around a team that had a great week of practice and then laid an egg on Saturday. They may not play quite as well, but I've always measured week to week is how you perform from Sunday afternoon to Friday. If they play well all week, you pretty well count on taking. I think that's a confidence level that a team itself takes to the game on Saturday afternoon.
All right, Max, last question before we let you go. We're going to talk to you again on Friday.
Yeah.
Auburn is a 10-point favorite now at home against LSU, and Alabama's a 20-point favorite now. What will it be on Friday? Will it be the same, or will it move?
No, I think Auburn will stay. I think that's established because LSU's who they are. They have not changed anything. They are who they are. Auburn performed extremely well, and I think what they're seeing is Washington might be a little bit better than we thought. However, that was the first ball game, so we'll get a chance to see it. The Ole Miss thing, I think that line might move just a little because Ole Miss did score 76, but they were behind at halftime now. Remember that they just turned it up, and I don't know whether I didn't really watch a lot of that second half, but I can tell you if it moves, if the Ole Miss Alabama moves, it won't be over 2 points. Alabama I think goes in with at least an 18-point edge in that game.
All right, Max.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you. We'll talk to you Friday.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.
Have a good week.